Hello, my citruses. In today's video, I thought of doing something simple. Very recently, I got the Egyptian Book of Dead Oracle, and there's chapters in it. There's also what I should do with the cards and what this book teaches me. And I'm thinking I kind of want to go through it with you guys. Now, we have the introduction, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, and chapter 5. Now, chapter 5 holds the cards and what they are, what they do, and what they mean. Chapter 4 is the reflections of Egypt. Chapter 3 is gods and goddesses of Egypt. Chapter 2 is a blessing and a curse. And chapter 1 is the mummies, magic, and mythology. In the introduction, it goes into the master of secrets. So, with all that being said, let's have some fun. Now, before I start, I gotta add my chat. Even though I know nobody's gonna be joining, really. Hello? I literally just told you to add yourself. There we go. Oh, it's not working. Or maybe it is, I'm just crazy. Ugh. Maybe it is. Okay, okay. Ready? Master of secrets. O grant unto me my mouth that I may speak therewith, and that I may follow my heart when it passeth enough fire and darkness. Egypt is one of the oldest civilizations in the world, with only the Mesopotamian civilization being older, dating far as back as 3150 BCE, until it was conquered by the Romans in 30 BCE, followed the death of Cleopatra. The Egyptian civilization was 3,000 years at the time, and it was seized by the Romans. In more recent times, particularly since the early 20th century, we have come to understand this civilization through evocation and archaeology. We know that the Egyptians were a deeply spiritual race of people. They believed in a whole pantheon of deities, both gods and goddesses. And, hold on, and the intricate rituals they used to honor and commune with their gods. They held certain animals, such as cats, snakes, and beetles, as being sacred creatures who helped to form an earthly link with the particular deities. Severe punishment was meted out to those who dared to injure or mistreat such creatures, with the death penalty being the ultimate price for killing a cat, even if the death was accidental. Death was a big preoccupation for the Egyptians. They believed in the afterlife and would send their deceased onto their tombs surrounded by wealth, weapons, food, and puppets, even much loved pets, so that the deceased had everything they might need in their afterlife. They developed an intricate network of funerary rites and rituals, such as embalming, mummification, and embodiment. Oh, entombment. My bad. Not only did this help to prevent the spread of disease and infection. Oh my god. It also preserved the body. This was important because Egypt believed that the spirits would reside within the body until the correct funerary rites had been performed. Only then was the spirit free to pass on to the afterlife. If the body was allowed to decompose in any way, the spirit would be trapped within, rather than passing on to the next realm. To help the deceased pass over, special scrolls would be placed on tombs or painted into pyramid walls. These scrolls were inscribed with spells, chants, and incantations, and were basically instructions that would guide the deceased on their way and ensure a safe crossing onto the afterlife. When one such text, known as the Papyrus of Ani, was discovered in the 1800s, it was dubbed the Egyptian Book of the Dead. This oracle deck is inspired by the scroll and is designed to be a positive tool for enlightenment. Ooh, so that is the first chap. Well, it's more of the introduction, but that is the first part, and that is the introduction. Um, when does the next one end? Hold on, un momento. Okay, I'll read chapter 1 too, since we're only at 5 minutes for the video. Forgive me, allergies. Mummy's magic and mythology. May he enter in with a bold heart, and may he come forth in peace and from the house of Osiris. There are few other ancient civilizations that have been quite romanticized as the Egyptians. From the seductive charms of Cleopatra to the mystery of the pyramids, the ancient Egyptians have held sway over our imagination for centuries. Their seemingly morbid obsession with death and preservation means that they have the glamour of immortality swirling around them. And the fact that they were still so fascinated by them means that, to a certain extent, they have indeed achieved everlasting life through the historical legacy they left behind. The Duat and the Fields of Reeds. In Egypt mythology, the Duat is the underworld or the netherworld. It is a place of transition where the dead are judged. If they pass the judgment, then they were allowed to move on to the afterlife known as the Field of Reeds. But if they failed the ordeal of judgment, then they were refused an afterlife altogether and therefore ceased to exist. In Egyptian spiritual belief, this was the ultimate punishment, as well as being a place to judge souls. The Duat was a realm where some of the gods and goddesses lived, namely Osiris, Hathor, Anubis, Ma'at, and other deities associated with darkness, death, and the power of the underworld. Osiris is often called the Lord of the Underworld, and he is viewed as being the primary deity of this realm, while Anubis the jackal-head god who guards the portal of the underworld of Duat. Mummification. It is almost impossible to imagine ancient Egypt without also thinking of mummification. The Book of Dead clearly states, "May he behold his body, may he rest in his glorified frame. May he never perish, and may his body never see corruption." The Egyptians were famous for embalming and mummifying their dead, so much so that ancient Greeks referred to the Egyptians as picklers. There is some truth in this because the fluids that were used in the embalming process acted like brine to preserve the body. The body would then be washed in fragrant oils such as myrrh. Once the body was embalmed and oiled, it would be wrapped in special amulets placed within the winding sheets. Swathes of bandages would be used to cover the body from head to foot, so Hollywood horror movies got that part right. The newly mummified corpse would then be interred in up of the 3 coffins or sarcophagi. Oh my god, hold on. Thirsty. Okay. The whole embalming and mummification process would take between 40 to 70 days, hence the need to preserve the body. This was deeply religious, almost magical rite of passage, but it was one which reserved for wealthy and those of high status. Ordinary Egyptians would not have access or the funds for such an elaborate process. You could say the mummies were minted. Shabti. Shapti, an ancient Egyptian puppet. I hope I'm saying these names right. If I'm saying them wrong, forgive me, guys. Those Egyptians who were of a high enough status to be mummified would have been used to having many servants during their lifetime. In ancient Egypt, slavery was common practice, so many of the menial jobs were undertaken by slaves and servants in the afterlife then. High status individuals would need a servant to do their bidding and carrying out manual labor on their behalf. This type of afterlife servant was represented by the Shabati, a small puppet type figurine usually in the form of a mummy sarcophagus. They were crafted from lasting materials such as stone, metal, clay, or glass, and were highly decorated and covered with gleaming blue or green glaze. Many were stolen during the excavations of 19th and the 20th century when archaeological tomb raiding was a big business. The Shabati had a dual purpose. Should the body of the deceased be damaged in some way, or in the likely event that the mummification process proved ineffective, the Shabati provided another body in which the deceased spirit could reside in. In this case, the Shabati was an insurance policy designed to give the deceased the very best chance of passing on to the afterlife. The concept of filling tombs with the material wealth and objects of comfort wasn't only something that the Egyptians indulged in. In fact, it was a common aspect of the ancient world. Many of these great goods have been discovered over the years, giving us insight into what was important to these ancient tribes. After all, a pharaoh would not want his tomb to be filled with useless clutter that served no purpose, so everything had special meaning and was carefully placed. So, that is the end of chapter 1 and the introduction. I appreciate anyone who did join today. I love all your support. Goodbye, my citruses. And don't forget to be a little sweet and a little sour. Bye bye.